All right, today we're going to dive into a story from the final days of World War II that you've probably never heard. It's a really startling story that doesn't start on some far-off battlefield, but at a quiet picnic deep in the American wilderness.
Just imagine hearing those words. That's Reverend Archie Mitchell, describing a single moment of absolute horror that unfolded right in front of him. A moment that didn't just change his life forever, but also uncovered a really secret, strange chapter of American history.
6. So what does that number mean? Well, those 6 people, they were the only civilians killed by an enemy weapon on the continental United States during the entire Second World War. And their deaths were caused by one of the weirdest, most silent weapons ever created.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. How in the world does a global war find its way to a remote mountainside in Oregon?
So picture this, it's May 5th, 1945. The war in Europe is literally days away from ending. A pregnant woman, Elsie Mitchell, and her husband Archie are out with their Sunday school class on a picnic. I mean, they're thousands of miles from any front line. And while Archie was parking the car, the kids and Elsie, they found something weird in the woods. Something that just didn't belong.
And just like that, this was the result. Absolutely devastating. Elsie and her unborn child, along with 5 children from their small community, all killed instantly when that strange object they found just exploded. It was a tragedy that left their little town completely shattered.
But the tragedy itself, well, that was just the beginning of the mystery. Because in the aftermath, there was this official silence from the government, which raised a huge question.
The question on everyone's mind was, what was this thing? How could an enemy weapon just appear out of thin air in the middle of rural Oregon?
The answer, believe it or not, was the Fugo, the Japanese balloon bomb. And honestly, it's a pretty incredible example of wartime ingenuity. This was, for all intents and purposes, the world's very first intercontinental weapon, a silent, unmanned balloon designed to float across an entire ocean to cause chaos.
The way this thing worked was, well, it was kinda genius. Japanese scientists figured out they could use the jet stream like a superhighway across the Pacific. The balloon had this clever system of altimeters and fuses, so when it got too low, it would automatically drop a sandbag to get lighter and rise back up. It would do this over and over, and after the very last sandbag was gone, the next trigger would release the bomb.
And don't think this was some small-scale test. Japan launched about 9,000 of these things, and it's estimated that 1,000 of them actually made that 5,000-mile journey. They landed all over the western part of North America, from Alaska all the way down to Mexico, and some were found as far east as Michigan.
Now, here's what's so wild about this. You've got this incredible, almost futuristic concept, an intercontinental weapons system, but it was built with the simplest stuff imaginable. We're talking about paper and a special glue made from potato paste. And the people building them? A lot of the time, it was Japanese schoolgirls conscripted to work long hours putting these things together.
So, if you're the US government and these strange weapons start landing on your soil, you've got a major problem. What do? What do you tell the public?
Well, they decided on total censorship, absolute radio silence. The goal was twofold. First, they wanted to prevent a nationwide panic. Second, they didn't want to give Japan any intelligence that their crazy plan was actually working. And ironically, the silence worked so well that Japan just assumed the whole program was a total failure and they shut it down. But there was a fatal flaw in this plan. An entire country was left completely in the dark about a silent danger drifting right over their heads.
And you can kind of see the thinking at the time, right? As this expert noted, for a while it seemed like a risk worth taking. I mean, the balloons were landing in really remote places, and for months nobody had gotten hurt. The government was basically rolling the dice, and for a while their luck held.
But those deaths in Oregon, that changed everything. The government had to say something, so they finally issued a public warning. The only problem? It was late May 1945. Germany had just surrendered. The entire world was focused on the end of the war in Europe, and this bizarre, tragic story from a tiny town in Oregon got almost completely lost in the headlines.
You know, for most people, that's where the story might end. But it didn't. Not even close. For the families, for the community, and even for the people who built the bombs, the echoes of that single explosion would ripple for decades.
I mean, just look at how this story kept evolving. 2 years after the tragedy, Reverend Mitchell found a way to start over, marrying the older sister of 2 of the children who died. Then, Decades later, in the 1980s, this unexpected connection formed with the very women who had built the bombs. And as recently as 2014, a live bomb was found, proving this history isn't over.
And this is maybe the most amazing part of the whole thing. You'd expect anger, right? Bitterness. But no. Instead, a connection was made between the community and the women who built the bombs. Those women folded 1,000 paper cranes, a powerful symbol of peace in Japan, and sent them to Oregon. It eventually led to them meeting face to face, turning a horrible story of war into an incredible one of healing.
And let's be super clear, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. Of that 1,000 or so balloons that made it to North America, hundreds have never been found. That discovery in 2014 proved they can stay live and dangerous for over 70 years. It took a full military bomb disposal team to safely get rid of it.
And that just leaves you with this one kind of chilling thought, doesn't it? This nearly forgotten weapon program left this deadly legacy scattered across an entire continent. It really makes you wonder, how many other secrets, how many other dangers from past wars are still out there just lying